Chess friends, I hope you are doing well. Today, I have Redfish, a brilliant chess guy, or you can say it an engine, who is the boss in the Czech Classical Chess Championship. I played a game with him where I brilliantly sacrificed my knight in the opening and played an epic Vienna Gambit. So, stay tuned until the end of the video, and let's get started without wasting any time. I started the game with e4, and at this point, we have e5 and bishop going to c4, deploying the bishop's opening, which is marvelous. Of course, playing knight f3 was also good, but after knight f6, we have d3, a simple move, and a few moves later, we have knight to c3. You may ask, oh, this is a completely rubbish opening because after playing knight c3, you will go into the classical variation, and there is d6 and bishop g4 from black, and this opening could be very boring. No fool, I am not boring like you. I know your life is boring. I played a very epic gambit, pawn to f4, deploying the Vienna Gambit, because I am attacking the pawn. And my knight can easily go to the g5 square to attack the pawn. Later on, I will castle to gain access to the f-file, which is my plan, and it is also a common idea in the Vienna Gambit. After exchanges occurred on the f4 square, as you can see, Redfish accepted my gambit, and after queen d2, I did not want to play a long castle. I preferred to play a short castle while biting my chewing gum, and that's what I wanted in the game. We had bishop to e6 in the game to exchange the light square bishops. But I didn't want to exchange them because the light square bishop is crucial for me to keep in the game. Playing a long castle might have been a choice for Redfish. I don't know exactly what is going on in Redfish's mind. He could castle long or short, but I was very determined to play a short side castle. Suddenly, we have h6 to prevent any knight entry to the g5 square. Therefore, I played bishop a4, and he played a6 to reinforce his defenses, likely concerned about his position. He knows I have Stockfish 17 version, and if I find any vulnerability, I can completely crush his game. Just like a kitchen stove or mixer crushes potatoes or nuts. At this point, after b5, I played a very crucial move. Can you guess what I played exactly? Try to think a little about what I considered. I played the powerful move knight takes b5, sacrificing the knight like I am the boss of bosses over Redfish. Sacrificing was a brilliant move because, after the exchanges, your knight gets paralyzed, while my knight can arrive at the d4 square, attacking your knight. Your dumb bishop cannot protect the knight because he is dumb. He didn't even complete his high school diploma, such an illiterate bishop. And playing any kind of rook moves doesn't matter to me because I can play a4, not a5, as my arrow mark just slipped. Alright, a few moves later, we have c4 and rook b8 attacking the bishop. d4 follows in the game with the idea of playing d5 to attack two pieces. Can you see that my single pawn, worth only 1 point, is able to attack 6 points worth of material? That's why Redfish is turning red in this position. I don't know why he's red or why he copied my name Fish, but he's a funny guy. So, I captured the bishop with the idea of playing knight to a7 to further press his defenses. Therefore, I first played d5, attacking the bishop, and as the bishop moved, we had a4. You can see how I made my pawn structure very strong and connected. At this point, many players might think of considering knight takes e4, thinking the pawn lacks protection. But doing so would be a very bad choice. If you capture the pawn, I would simply consider queen to d4, attacking your two vulnerable knights. Even if you dare to play knight c5 to protect your vulnerable knights, I wouldn't consider b4. I would play a different strong move, queen takes g7, attacking your rook. Of course, you would have to move your rook. You have no other choice. You can see how I am influencing you to decide what you should or shouldn't play. That's how my chess game works. I know what I will consider after 20 to 25 moves, and I even know what my opponent might consider. I analyze every single move on the chessboard and predict what my opponent is thinking. That's why I am unique and titled the God of Chess. Of course, bishop takes knight is a very bad choice because after rook takes f3, rook to e1 will come to harass the black king. The king will face misery and lose his reputation. Many players might think of moving the king to a safer square. If you do that, like playing king d8, I would consider knight d4 with the idea of knight c6 to put pressure on your two pieces. Now, my knight is the brother of the pawn who attacked the 6 points of material earlier. Knight c6 follows in the game, attacking the bishop, and after queen takes knight, queen takes f8 will follow, and I will simply win the rook. Therefore, if you dare to consider knight takes c6, your miseries will be limitless. After I capture the knight, attacking your queen, and as your queen retreats, your g5 bishop will be under attack. Therefore, your g6 bishop will be unprotected, allowing me to capture it and eventually capture your rook as well. The position will be over for you. So, let me share an inspirational quote in sudden with you. Be patient with yourself, you are growing stronger every day, the weight of the world will become lighter, and you will begin to shine brighter. Don't give up. Alright, going back to the position, we can see that capturing the pawn on the e4 square would have been a very bad choice. That's why after castling, we had queen to c2, gaining access to the diagonal. As the rook moved, we had bishop e3, and a few moves later, rook to c1, gaining access to the file. Later, we had bishop g6 and a5. You can see how my two connected pawns are advancing towards victory, gaining control of another territory. Many players might consider knight takes b5 since the pawn is unprotected. That's what Redfish played in the game, actually. Then I considered knight c6, followed by knight f6 from Redfish, putting pressure on the pawn. I couldn't protect the pawn, so I played queen e2 to put pressure on the knight on b5. Look, fool, your knight is in the wrong place. The knight has literally no square to go. Even the rook cannot protect the knight, and the queen cannot protect the knight either. The knight is just vulnerable. Alright, even knight a7 is not possible. Therefore, he just captured the pawn on the e4 square. Can I capture the knight on the b5 square? Let's examine it. If I capture the knight, he will likely capture the pawn on the g2 square, and if I lift my rook to f2, then he will just recapture the pawn on the d5 square with the protection of the knight. Therefore, if I capture the bishop, after queen to g4 check, the king will literally have no good squares to go to. So, after the king hides in a dustbin or a cave, queen to e4 check will follow, and there will be numerous checks along the g-file. As you can see, the game will end in a draw. But I don't want to draw this game because Redfish is like a pack of shoes I ordered from an online retailer, and I cannot draw with him. He became very angry after hearing my comment and played a very nasty looking move. Can you guess what Redfish played in this position? Redfish became nasty and played knight to a4. What a brilliant move, right? Of course, it is not a brilliant move, but it's one that no human would usually find. The idea behind the sacrifice is that he wants to develop my pawns, and my attacks will be reduced. Therefore, the bishop will move back, rook to e8 can come, and everything will go smoothly. So, after knight a3, I didn't capture the knight immediately. Instead, I played h3 and captured the knight later. I also had queen to b5 to defend the knight. We had queen exchanges on the board, and as you can see, we had rook takes a5. A few moves later, as the game progressed, bishop d4 arrived, attacking the knight through the rooks on this file. After the rook moved, I captured the pawn. A few moves later, you can see we were just maneuvering some pieces. Eventually, we had bishop d4 followed by h5 and rook to f1. Here, I illustrated my valor by capturing the bishop with my rook. The point is that after the capture, I recaptured the pawn on the g7 square, making your pawn vulnerable. I created two passed pawns, as you can see in the game. A few moves later, there were some dances with the pieces on the board, with rook f2 followed by g4. A few moves later, we had bishop e3 and g6 on the board, and the game continued. Going back one move, when I considered rook to g5, you might ask if playing c4 could be an option. If you do so, I would consider h6. After rook c8, my king would move down to the e1 square. And my king would be able to protect the pawn from becoming a new queen. My pawns are ready to attack the black king. Therefore, this position is completely winning for me. The pawn cannot escape its destiny. It did bad karma bad actions in its previous life, and now it is facing the consequences in this one. Never mind. So, I hope you enjoyed the game very much. I defeated Redfish very well. I hope you will subscribe to the channel. Wishing you all the best. Bye bye, take care, and see you soon.